What's happening, everyone? Welcome to another Sportscast. It's me, Andy Grant. As always, now we've got Gary Judge from across the park. Quiet-ish week on the old social media. Both of us survived any shit, which was nice. Refreshing. We've made notes here where to start. Obviously, in the footy final day drama. Though, what I think, though, lad, if it's all right with you, start off with the old the racism thing. Get like the deep, heavy stuff out the way.
Okay.
It was mad to see Vinicius Jr. On the end of some just fucking horrific.
It's vile, yeah.
Just like absolutely, just horrific kind of. What would you even call him? It's not even like human behaviour, is it? Just absolute scumbags. I didn't realise the extent of it until I seen then the effigy that was made in January, apparently.
The Atletico one?
Yeah.
Hanging from a bridge.
Off a bridge.
It's vile hatred, isn't it? Like,
it just begs belief of like just humans, mate. You know, trying to make light of it a minute. You kind of you watch someone like Elon Musk putting people on like in space, and you think like, wow, us humans
developed.
How amazing are
we've come.
And then you see stuff like this, and you're going, what the fuck is wrong with people?
I know, and it's an extension of basic jealousy and resentment and bitterness, isn't it? Like we talk about in banter the bitterness Evertonians, Liverpool being successful. There's a little bit of that going on with the Atletico and Real Madrid, but this is not the first time it's happened to Vinicius, and it's not just isolated to Atletico Madrid. Vinicius is a little bit like the in La Liga, because he dribbles a lot. He kind of throws himself over and stuff, and he's not the most popular figure in La Liga for that reason, and he's obviously an outstanding player. But to take it to that level of personal,
Have you seen the video he posted? And you can just hear the monkey noises, and I think he said it's not the first time it's happened. And there was a video that went out. Must be like 10 or so different stadiums, walkways, everything. And you just think to yourself, how are you keeping calm over this? It's like, there's one video I saw and he's actually in tears. And obviously I've never experienced racism. Got no idea what it must be like, but you could just almost sense the kind of frustration in him to think like, I can't do anything. I can't stop you making these noises and taunting me. And you can just see him like getting like, it's like a young kid getting so frustrated, and it's bubbling.
So cowardly as well, isn't it? Like the effigy, the noises, the kinds of, they're not bravely standing up and going, I believe in this, and whatever crazy warped ideas they've got of why that's acceptable. They're not fronting it, are they? No. They're doing it under the breath. They're obviously doing them things in the dark, and I think they've got someone, haven't they? Or they did get someone.
I think they've got 4 of them now, yeah. And I seen that it was Valencia have had one stand kind of like basically cordoned off that they can't use now next time. But it's just fucking really sad. And what I found really interesting is, we'll come on to it as well. Obviously, we touched on it last week, Ivan Toney's ban. Now, yeah, different federations, if you like, one's Spanish, one's English and things like that. But, you look at some of the bans that are handed out, kind of 8 months for racism. It got me thinking about Luis Suarez when he called, not by any chance jumping to the defence of Suarez, but Suarez's defence was, it's okay in my country to say, I think it translated to like little black man or something like that. Yeah. He's got punishment. The punishment he got was fucking, again, 6-7 games, I think. Ivan Toney's banned for this long.
It's across society, though.
It's a society problem.
It extends beyond football, so it still goes on now. If you see someone in court for fraud or for anything, embezzling money or whatever, they're going down for 20 years. Someone who's in court for fiddling with a child, or interfering with a child, or abusing a child, they're getting like suspended sentences. Yeah. It's like mental. The moral compass of the courts, the judges, the CPS, the authorities, and it starts to open up the conspiracy theorists, then, doesn't it, around like these secret elite people, who are trying to keep these things under wraps.
Because apart from going down the conspiracy theory route, there's no kind of moral, straight way of thinking of why is this happening.
No.
If it's not a conspiracy, because how is that the case that you can, do something to a minor, vile, despicable creatures, and get, like you say, a suspended sentence, you know, you rob a big corporate business of a few quid, and that's you down for 20 years. You look at the gates that are now opening up in football. You know, you can taunt someone in racist language. You know, you can abuse them, and you might get, like, say, in Suarez's case, 6, 7, 8 game ban. You can fucking gamble on football, right? I don't even think he probably made any money, Tony, and he's banned for 8, 9 months.
And going back to the Vinicius thing, the ripples that has across the world for young children to see that's acceptable. I mean, you talk about it, we spoke about it in another respect around, like, you know, the way the Klopp reacted in relation to the referee, and then that gets repeated in grassroots. Yeah. That's why I do believe that, you know, in that instance, that you know, the punishment should be harsh to send out a message. In the case of racism, it goes like every you know, every layer of society is affected by that type of behaviour, and particularly when that behaviour is either seen to be condoned or that the punishment is nothing compared to other ones.
Well, notwithstanding different leagues, as in English and Spanish, but you're looking at someone now, as we are now, we're talking about it. On one hand, you can gamble on football and that's it, the book's thrown at you, you got 8, 9 months, or you can, you know, be racist and get a far less punishment. That's essentially what's going on. I know it's a bit different as in some of these fans and stuff, but at one point there was a kind of La Liga president was going back and forth with him on Twitter, basically defending Spain and defending La Liga.
Yeah, so think about it in a day-to-day instance, in the way that what you think as a person to be acceptable or not acceptable. If you've seen, I don't know, one of the Liverpool players walking out of the Ladbrokes, you'd probably look twice and think, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
But if you've seen one of the Liverpool players or heard one of the Liverpool players being racist towards another person, be like, what are you doing?
That's a great point, that.
Like,
that's a great point.
On a normal person level, like, you just wouldn't condone that behaviour regardless of who it is. But whereas
football is allowing that to happen.
Yeah, and so I can see why.
Listen, it's a society problem. It's a human being problem, racism. But when football acts like this and doesn't do anything about it, whether that's the police,
they've got the best, biggest platform.
They can do something about it, and whether it's going to start being like, you know, docking points or whatever, fans playing behind closed, whatever it may be, fuck me, come down on them hard, because I fucking, really sad seeing what I had to go through there. Absolute madness. Just thought best mention that, because it was a bit shitty.
Punish the clubs for me. I think the association, allowing those people to be associated with your club, you're guilty by association. You know, I know there's a level like how do you vet your fans and stuff, but
I would have thought as well, like Spain, the bigger authorities in Spain, because I think it gives the country a bad look. I mean, I didn't realise Spain was so racist.
And again, with respect, and I don't mean to
it's
say
not all
this
Spanish
is a fact.
People, is
no,
it?
Also, but I would make the assumption now that it'd be like, you know, Eastern Europe, maybe, you know, and like certain parts of Eastern Europe, you know,
they're kind of known for it a bit more,
and you know, and Serbia have always had a bit of a deep-lying problem with racism and stuff like that. But no, you don't. I mean, Spain is such an accessible,
diverse country, isn't it? What you think?
Very diverse country, yeah.
So yeah, mad. But anyway, onto lighter stuff, or maybe not lighter stuff for you, but it's pretty chill for me. The final day is coming up on the drama that will no doubt throw up.
By the way, I've seen, I think it was, I don't know if it was Hotel Anfield or it was one of those, putting on like this like dead dramatic day. Comes on and let's enjoy this entertainment of these three. It had like a
wrestling with
yeah. It was funny. It was funny, to be fair. Good banter.
So yeah, I mean, I guess there's nothing else really to speak about apart from the relegation.
What are you going to say apart from the bet?
Apart from the bet, yeah, which we'll come on to Everton in a minute, and Calvert-Lewin. But with regards to the final day, obviously Prem's been shown up with City. By the way, City against Brighton last night. How Everton beat Brighton? You know, Brighton has such a good team.
Yeah, no, we just caught them kind of off guard, didn't we? I think the complacency happens at every level, doesn't it?
Do you think though, mate, where Everton would be if they didn't beat Brighton? Fucking madness. And yet Brighton get a draw against City and confirm their spot in the Europa League, which is, it's mad to think how, not to be disrespectful to Brighton, but I do think of Brighton as a small club, like a tiny little club.
It's great for the league, that though, I think. It sets a precedent, doesn't it,
to
say you can do it the right way. You can do it sensibly, you can sell you know, what are perceived to be greater assets and bring in more value God forbid me saying that about an Everton player. And you know, and you can reap the rewards if you do your recruitment right.
Exactly.
Bring in the right manager.
Do it the right way.
You know, when they lost Potter, and I spoke to a few Brighton fans before we played them. We spoke to a Brighton podcast, and they were saying, look, we thought we were done. When we lost Potter, we thought we were going to go backwards. We were maybe going to get relegated.
And the guy they've brought in, I mean, listen, I love football. I didn't know anything about him.
To Serbi, no, I mean, he's certainly not got a...
Hasn't come with a crazy track record, has he?
No.
You're thinking, wow.
I mean, no, he was unfortunate when he was Shakhtar-Donetsk, and because of the whole...
I don't even know anything about
him. You know, he was in the Champions League with them. But because of everything...
But still, though, you wouldn't go bank, or, you know, he's going to do...
No, I guess the point I was making is he probably would have had a higher profile had the whole, you know, Ukraine, the war thing not gone on with Ukraine, because he had to leave because of that reason. But yeah, no, fair credit to the club, and I think it's great. I said that when we spoke on our podcast to a Brighton fan podcast. I'm made up for them. It's great, that.
And I think that I would like, actually, mate, if you're up for it, we should do a bit of research and a bit of an in-depth look at Tony Bloom, because he's a real interesting character. He's got a gambling firm. I think you need to have like $1 million to even be a part of this little syndicate club. Yeah. But like, it's all analytical, you know, everything's data driven, and that's how he's basically running the football club. Fascinating guy. Yes, and listen, fair play to them.
It's Moneyball-esque, isn't it? Yeah, a lot of clubs have modelled it on that, and FSG to a certain extent do that. Obviously, they've got a bit of a track record. Brentford, similar model as well. But no,
it just shows you when you can do it properly with numbers, compared to what arguably Everton and Chelsea have done, where they've just fucking bought anyone. It just shows the difference. I
say it all the time though on our podcast, and I can't reiterate it enough. I say it to my mates, and you know, and anyone can relate to it. It's business. It's business. Yeah. Run your football club like you would run your own business, and like you wouldn't go out like, you know, we all have occasions where maybe say you're self-employed, or you've got a bit of money. Even if it's in your family, you win some money and you go and blow it on a few holidays, it's not going to make your life better. Is it? Not going to enrich you beyond those 2 weeks. Yeah. And I think that's the way that certain clubs, again, you mentioned Everton, Chelsea, for example, have done it. They've looked at it and go, okay, well, let's have a plan, let's have a strategy, let's be confident in what we're doing, let's have conviction, and let's be consistent in the way we work. And if you do that in life and in business, 100%. It pays off, and in this case it has.
It's reaping the benefits. So Brighton confirmed the Europa League. The only one that's up for grabs as well is Aston Villa. I think they're going to be going against Tottenham for the Europa Conference, but I'd fancy Villa to get in there as well ahead of Tottenham.
God,
which is mad. Which is madness.
In a minute, won't we?
What a point I will make before we go on to the the main crux of the show, the relegation, is I sent you the article. It kind of I don't want to go on about it too much because we kind of kick the arse out of the Man City spending, but the article. It was a great article about, basically, it said everyone in football, you know, will have an asterisk next to their name in the next couple of years because of, you know, let's be honest, every club in that Premier League will have broke some sort of rule. It's just how kind of big you want to do. And the article I read was about the swim team. Basically, some company made this basically swimsuit that had, I think, some sort of polythyrene kind of thing in it, which basically made you a little bit lighter in the water. And in one Olympics in particular, they allowed people to use it. And in that Olympics, something like 30 world records got broken.
Yeah.
And then the year later, everyone wore it. And
F1 as well. F1 a bit of that a few years ago, didn't it?
Yeah. In running, there's certain trainers now that have got a bit of kick to it. Yeah. And it just brings it into, I guess, the sport and kind of...
competitive advantage.
Yeah. It's like, how big do you want to go? Like, again, it was all about Man City. Like, you made the great point. I'm not disagreeing that those 11 players... and that manager are unbelievable. Unless they've took, and I'm not suggesting they have, but unless they're taking performance-enhancing drugs, which they're obviously not.
Yeah, not Liverpool, are they?
They're not Liverpool, they're asking fucking inhalers. They are an unbelievable team. No one is saying anything about that. But then, when it comes to sport and integrity, okay, how much are you paying these players? Did you go stay within the rules? Was there any backhanders there? Was there this? Was there that? That's when...
Yeah,
like, you can't just turn a blind eye. I made a great point. Well, I thought I made a great point. I said about Lance Armstrong, it's like, it's a bit like saying, well, yeah, but he did beat cancer. Well, yeah, fucking great. Yeah, Man City are great. He beat cancer, great. You still fucking cheated. Like, and I know you can say, yeah. It's a little bit like someone come back at me and said it's a bit like an F1 car. You know, that driver fucking might be unbelievable. But if they fucking souped up that car with a jet engine on, he's still fucking cheating.
Yeah.
And it's like...
and I guess the point you're making is there's degrees of cheating, isn't there?
Yeah.
So is that, do you do it on some kind of spectrum? Or is it like, look, it's black and white, you're either cheated or you didn't cheat, and i.e. there's an asterisk next to your name because you broke rules.
And that's what I think's really...
Like your lockdown title.
Yeah.
Like asterisks.
Yeah. I'm not even going to jump to that. And what I think the bigger debate is, which is happening a little bit in the media, I'm not saying they've skated over it, but I don't think there's enough of it. Like, on one hand, there's your arguments, which I wouldn't say it's an argument, but like it's more of a point. Which is a great point. This team needs to be celebrated. It's fucking unbelievable. Yeah, it does. But at the same time, this fucking cheating.
Let me take you back a little bit then. So you spoke about the United team in 98, 99 and whatever. Obviously won the treble. Was it 99, 2000? 98, 99, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously you said, look, different level because they've done this and they've done it the right way. Class of 92. Go back 20, 30 years ago in maybe the early 90s, and players were getting tapped up from other academies, other teams, and getting driven into the top teams as Man United were at that period. There was a lot of illegal activity going on there. There was backhanders for parents, there's this, that and the other going on. Most of the players who were recruited there were probably recruited in a very underhanded manner.
Good point, yeah.
Now, and that's the point. How far do you go back, and how deep do you go under the surface, and how far do you go down that rabbit hole? Because it's different. It's a different degree of cheating.
But ultimately, it's getting you to the same goal, isn't it?
Nowadays, the way those players were recruited, the majority of them, and again, someone will correct me here, I'm sure. But I think if you go into the profile of each one of those players and how they were recruited, nowadays, that would be illegal. There'd be illegal approaches there. And some very inappropriate stuff going on.
Gary, it'll go on now. It'll go on at the academies now. You know,
it's going on now, yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? And I thought it was quite funny. Noel Gallagher was on TalkSport, and this is how I'd be if I was a City fan. They basically said, you know, have you got any remorse? If it comes out you've been cheating, he was like, fucking no, because he was like, I was in that ground. I felt it. I enjoyed it.
You've experienced it now.
Yeah.
It's gone.
And that's what I'd be saying. If I was sitting here and Liverpool had cheated away to titles and people had missed out, I'd be going,
I've had the time of my life.
I've had the best time ever.
Yeah,
unlucky.
That's it. Yeah.
And I think that's how I would be. So fair play to Noel.
And that's the point. That's the point I was making about, like, look, how would you feel? Would you be bothered?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Unfortunately, I am bothered though, because I was the one who fucking missed out. But yeah, it's good.
You can't say you missed out. You've had enough. The devil has sat on your shoulder for long enough.
Yeah, no, we've had some great times, but notwithstanding that, it could have been a couple more. But yeah, boo-hoo. Right, let's go on to the crux of it. Right. So
speaking of which,
how did you? By the way, did you watch the Leicester game midweek against Newcastle? I spoke to my sister's fella Harry, and he went, I can't believe they got a point. I said, lad, he nearly won it in the last minute. He went, nah.
So I'm obviously sitting here now with a watch. Obviously, it's just a GPS watch, but it's got your heart rate on, and I'm one of them now. I watch one of your podcasts with Paul, and he's a bit of a nerd on checking his resting heart rate, and I'm trying to pride myself when I sit down after my tea to try and get me resting heart rate as low as I can, chill, and I'm watching the Newcastle Leicester game. So the game starts, and I'm on, like, quite high for me. I'm on 70 beats per minute. I'm like, okay, just chill a little bit. Newcastle are in control. Dropped it down to, like, me resting, which is 50 odd. And the ball comes in, and like, they got that free kick, and I'm like, oh my God. Jen's on the edge of her seat as well, because obviously she's affected by Everton wives and all that. And she's watching, and the ball comes in, and the horror when Castagna hits that ball in the volley, I thought it was going in. I looked at me after he'd saved it, and I'm like, I'm waiting for someone to tap it in on the rebound as well. It went up to 110. It was like to be sitting on the couch. I didn't even jump up. I was like pushing myself back into the seat.
Wow.
It's jumped up to 110, but it was like, this is proper.
I'm glad you suffered a little bit, because my sister's fella Harry went, lad, the commentators made it sound closer than it was. I was like, lad, that was close.
No, it was,
6 yards out, and he's...
If he hits that a little bit more powerfully, because he's in that position and the keeper's a little bit unsighted, keeper probably stands there and watches it go past him. It was the fact that it didn't maybe have as much pace on it, allowed Nick Pope to get across, but...
I think, listen, people will correct me when it's their team involved in it, but it seems this season, the last 2 or 3 games, there's been big moments. Penalty misses, last-minute goals, last-minute saves. You think of your one in the 98th minute, you think of the 2 saves in the Leicester game, you think of the Newcastle penalty miss for Bamford.
There are things like that.
There's probably they probably happen every season.
But
I don't
you're
know.
Right.
It seems to be a lot.
There are things like that where you think, maybe this is going to go for us.
But for all three teams, though, I think, like, you know, you might go, that penalty save Pickford saved.
Against Leicester before Pickford saves that pen had the game of his life. Terrible goal, Ian, by the way. But he has an absolute worldie. I won't talk too much about goalies, but he has a worldie of a game against us, but he's been dreadful since. But that game, on the other hand, I was watching that game thinking, something's not right here. It was one-sided game of football you will ever see.
The Newcastle one?
They had like 30 shots on goal.
The post 3 times.
The XG was something like 3.8. And it was 0-0, and I was thinking, and then they got that. Oh my god!
I thought it was a perfect plan. I thought he's probably said,
"Oh no, fair play to him. Listen, fair play.
0-0 half time.
Takes a lot that, not only for a manager, but a team like that who are, for me, are completely down tools. For them to have that discipline to sit in there, not easy to do that.
Because I think a team like Newcastle, in such an unfortunate position, it's like you stick or twist. The point is arguably, you know, takes us into the last game with a point. But if we win, it's in our own hands.
What Dean Smith's saying though is obviously how mentally weak that team is. He was trying his best with substitutions to get them to come out, and he just wouldn't. They were like, "No,
we're scared.
Like we've conceded too many goals, and we're actually having a bit of perceived success here. We're not going anywhere, 100%. Despite how many forwards you bring on. We're staying here."
But it was a mad game. I really enjoyed watching it, to be fair. Not even in a
just interesting
anti-Everton way. I thought it was fascinating, but. That being said, so they get the points, which makes it really, really interesting this last game of the season. The biggest one for you, I think it's mad how all three are at home as well. You know, if one of them are away,
all three are at home with very winnable games.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Well, for the reason they're all winnable, I think, I just think the Everton crowd, you know, can be massive for you. And you in a normal season, you'd think Everton blow Bournemouth away. You know, you just look at the clubs, the size of them, ordinarily, Everton win that game at home, you'd think. Leeds at home to Spurs, ordinarily, no, they're not. However, Spurs have not won in the last 9 away games.
It's Spurs, you know.
Spurs are awful. What are they, 8th? And Leeds are at home playing for that. So again, you can see Leeds getting a result. Leicester at home to West Ham again. Ordinarily, would you say maybe draw or something? However, you throw into the mix, West Ham have got a Europa League final in front of them, and Leicester are playing for their lives. You'd say that's winnable, which just makes it so fascinating.
And as you said before we come on, I've mentioned on our podcast, the aggregate score of us against Bournemouth this year, 7-1.
7-1. They've both been away though, haven't they?
They're both in a week, the space of a week, just before the World Cup it was. We were talking about it on our podcast, and we said, if it wasn't for the World Cup, Frank Lampard would have got sacked after that game. But I think the board thought, look, you've got the World Cup, there's the window coming up, you know, we can probably just reset a little bit. And the players almost got the chance to forget about it. So I can't quite work out whether that's a positive, that the players got the chance to almost blank that out because they had a 6-week break after it, or whether it's you'd rather the players could still feel that and think we owe them one.
Take that into the next game, yeah.
But I think there's enough motivation anyway.
I think the biggest thing for the Blues now, which would have me worrying all week, the fact that Calvert-Lewin, you know, I do want me 50 quid. You did bet me he'd score 3 goals.
I was hoping you'd say, you know, give it to charity, but, you know.
Do you know what? It's a good show. You've guilted me into that one. We'll do the O McVeigh Foundation. You can send 50 quid to them. Fucking bastard. Made me look at flat there, didn't you? Give you 50 quid to them. What I would say, though, is, you have lost 50 quid to a great cause, but you're bang on with your points. You just look at a different side with him in that team, and the fact that he's injured now.
We had to throw centre-halves up front against Wolves just to have a presence up there. That's
what I think is, and you know what, if you do end up going down, which, joking aside,
the club's fault. The club's fault for not bringing a forward in. It's criminal.
You spoke before, made a good analogy about whatever business it is, you know, you make smart decisions. To be in the mess you were in last season, right, and think that the best thing to do is sell your best striker, your best player who's a striker, happens to the ball in the back of the net, not replace him, and then somehow a year later be in a position going, how did we end up here? Yeah. It's fucking ridiculous. No. Like, our Evertonians, I know how frustrated you are with the board, but I
know.
Fuck me.
But no one in any
just
other
as a football fan,
you wouldn't get away with it, would you? No one would get away with it.
The incompetence of behind it, and like you say, I'm not his biggest fan, but listen, I can see what the difference he makes in that team for you, and the fact he's not playing, I can't see he's even. I know, and you need to win now. You know, we've just went over the kind of the other teams and what they're playing for. Leeds and Leicester win. I know Leeds need to win by 3, don't they? But they're both winnable games, like we've just said. Everton needs to win, and
Well, we've got to win.
Where's the goal coming from?
No two ways. I know, that's it. Like, as you've seen at Wolves, it took us 98 minutes to break through, and it was literally just lump it. You can't do that from the get-go. You can't throw your centre-backs up there straight away. I mean, there's other factors. Obviously, McNeil had to play left-back. We've got no full-backs either, by the way. No Calvert-Lewin and no full-backs. Michalenko's out, Coleman's out, Patterson's out. So we're either going to have to, we were speaking about it on our podcast, we're either going to have to play 4 centre-backs in a back 4, or play 3 centre-backs and play Iwobi and McNeil wing-backs, 2 of our most creative players, and they're going to end up being, at times, pinned back. It's almost a thankless
It's fucking
task.
a recipe for disaster, if you ask me.
But just on that, quickly, Ellis Sims has got to come in. It would be ridiculous to not play Ellis Sims, given what you've just said and what we've seen at Wolves, the fact that we need a target man. We just need someone to hit. It doesn't have to be fantastic technically. He just needs to give us something to hit, make the ball stick, and work off him. If you can do that, then I think there's a different dynamic to our play. But
I think, it gets spoken about loads, and I always hear Carragher talking about it, how an intimidating atmosphere Goodison can be. I think, if that game gets to half-time and it's 0-0, and you start getting the kind of, it comes through, Leeds are 1-0 up, Leicester 1-0 up, I think that could be a scary time.
Oh, very scary. We've even spoke about, imagine if all 3 games are 1-0 with 10 minutes to go, and you think that 1 goal from Bournemouth. I remember when we played Coventry at home, which was the last time we were effectively in this position, was 1998. And I was 13 at the time, but I can remember it clear as day, obviously. I remember we needed to win, really, but remember the other team, was it Bolton that were in? Yeah, Bolton were playing Chelsea away. So if Bolton were getting beat, we could afford to just draw. We were 1-0 up. We got a pen. Barnby missed the penalty when we were 1-0 up. Thankfully, at this point, Chelsea...
That's why we signed them, lad.
Chelsea were 1-0 up, I think, at the time as well. So we had a bit of a margin for error. But remember the cross come in. I can still see this goal like it was 5 seconds ago. And Dion Dublin heads it. Thomas Meyer pushes it into the corner of the net, and you could hear the net go, "Shh." It was that quiet, and their fans like a little bit of, but the silence in the ground was like, "Oh my god,
this is us."
And it only would have taken Bolton to equalise at Chelsea, and for Coventry to get 1 more, and we'd have been down. And I remember the nerves for them last few minutes. If it was 1-0 and all the games were in that balance, because half of the grounds would be looking at the phones thinking, just someone equalise so that the pressure's off us, and then the other half be looking at the game, and there'd be the players that feel that nerves.
Obviously, and I'm not trying to gloat, but the only experience of that was Villa, the last game of the season. Where I think it was 0-0 maybe, and or it might have been 1-1. Half time, Villa at 2-0 up, and I'm thinking, oh my god, I want to fucking win the league here. And then I spent the whole second half just on my phone. Yeah, it's 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, and you're just like.
Yeah, it's demoralising.
It's horrible.
When it's out of your hands, I mean, going back to it though, it's in our hands. Like, all the stuff around how we're going to score, this, that, just got to beat Bournemouth. I've said to everyone, if we don't beat Bournemouth, I don't care if we stay up or not, I'm walking out that ground. They're not getting a clap or anything from me.
Well, that's what I was going to...
We don't get the result and we don't do the job, or our players don't do the job. They don't deserve anything.
Firstly, I was going to say, despite all the shit you've got to moan about, the managers, the board, etc., the players to some extent, if you can't beat Bournemouth at home, you fucking don't deserve to be in the Prem.
No.
So that's number one. Number two, what I am fascinated to know, what do you think the vibe will be like? 90 minutes come, both, if you, let's say you end up staying up, let's say you go down, what will be that? What will be the atmosphere in that ground?
I think it'll be look, there's a few factors here. If we win tomorrow, win on Sunday, I think there'll be acknowledgements for Sean Dyche and his staff and the players getting together to go, okay, you've booked your ideas up. Maybe there's a degree of fault on Lampard, etc. But it's like, okay, let's move on now. You've shown some
backbone, really.
Yeah, a little bit of backbone to dig yourselves out. You were in the bottom 3 for a period of time. You've won games against the odds, against the likes of Brighton. You've got, you've scored dramatic equalisers at Wolves, etc. Few of the individuals in the team will come out with credit anyway, but generally as a group, you pulled us out of it. So, okay, fair enough. What I don't want to see on Sunday, and I don't want Evertonians to take this the wrong way, don't be invading the pitch. This team doesn't deserve that level of credit.
Yeah.
Now, if you're invading the pitch and we've been beat 2-0 by Bournemouth, or invading the pitch to you know, to protest against the board, fair enough. Probably not going to be one of them, although I might be. The emotion might get. But I'm not. I don't condone us invading the pitch if we beat Bournemouth 2-0 and stay up. It should be, let's stay in the ground and let's acknowledge some of the players who deserve
it. It almost seems a bit celebratory, doesn't it?
It does.
You're like, why?
And I defended the way that it went about last year, because there was a degree of we were backs against the wall. Frank Lampard created that mentality. It was a siege mentality to go, look, they want us to go down. It's us against them type thing. We were 2-0 down in the game, so there's a degree of a dramatic... There was a dramatic winner there, so I get that. Emotions got, you know, kind of spilled over, but there's been a lot of time to reflect on this now. Going back to 6-8 weeks ago, where we were saying, just get us to that last game and make sure we're in it against Bournemouth, and we as the fans will get us over the line. Yeah. All that, and the amount of times the fans have had to dig these players out and dig the club out and pull them out of the shit, so to speak. They don't deserve credit or recognition in the way of the fans going on and giving them this big rouse. And
I agree. I'm glad you answered that way, because there's nothing worse than a team being shit all season, somehow doing a fucking Harry Houdini, getting yourself out of it, and the fans going, well in. It's
and
like,
that point, that, you know, that, what is it going to be, like 36 points? You say at the start of the season the team's going to have 36 points. What do they deserve from the fans? It'll be F off, do you know what I mean? Like, do one, the lot is. So we've got to remember that. And again, I'm not saying for a second we don't get behind the team. Until that final ball is kicked, we do what we can for the team. But let's remember the whole of this season as well. If they do the job on Sunday, credit them, clap. You know, if you want to stay behind, do it, absolutely fine. But don't be going over the top with it. Dyche and his team deserve some credit, because they have created they've created a system which has got us enough points, hopefully, to keep us up.
Do you think you will stay up?
Yeah, I think we'll beat Bournemouth. We'll find a way to beat Bournemouth. I do believe that.
In a way, right? Again, I go on record to say, do you know what? I'm split between, if I could guarantee you should only do one season.
Yeah, you probably enjoy the whole funny, like,
side of it. But I wouldn't want you to stay down there forever. If I could guarantee you get relegated and then come back up within a year,
or maybe 2 years.
No,
enjoy 2 years.
No, honestly, get back up in a year. That'd do me. I'd be made
as long as you didn't win anything.
No, I wouldn't mind. Just won the league, win the championship. Or maybe come up second. That'd be better.
Yeah, the seconds, like, you don't even get the playoff.
No. Yeah. So on record, I'll say, I hope you go down for 1 year. If I can guarantee you come back up, I'll be happy with that. But the thing which I think will be interesting, if you do go down, which again I hope you don't. Like,
you said we hope you do.
Well, I hope you do for a year, but I mean, what I don't want to happen is I don't want you to go 2-0 up or 3-0 up after 10 minutes and the whole day become an anticlimax, because as a...
I do.
Well, I know you do, but as a just a fan of football...
Oh yeah, I get that. Listen,
for the jeopardy, it'll be fucking brilliant on 70
whether you're
minutes.
a neutral or whether,
3-0 nils or 3-1 nils
my
or whatever.
watch, I think the battery will run out on my watch. I'll probably have to charge it before
That's
Sunday.
what I want. So it's not so much what used to go. I just want Sunday to be like...
You want to see some of them faces in the crowd.
Yeah,
and, you know,
I want it to be
grown men crying.
Drama. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's my take on it. Go down for a year, back up. But you don't think they will, no?
No, I think we'll win. I think we'll win on Sunday.
1 minute I think you will go down, and then the next minute I just think there will be drama.
There's 18 or 19 permutations, and 13 of the 19, I think it's 18. 12 of the 18 means we stay up.
Yeah, the odds are in your favour, aren't they?
So if you're going to be a stats man and Mr. Bloom is, then you would say that.
Yeah, you'd say yeah.
Chance of staying up.
We've already mentioned not really much else to say on Leicester and Leicester and like you say, Leicester being awful, but the only hope you'd give them is they're playing against a West Ham side who West Ham are playing away from home, and I've got a European final to look forward to. Spurs, fucking shite, not 1 in 9. You know what? Out of the 2 games, I don't give West Ham a prayer against Leicester just because of the sheer desire of them. I think they showed a bit of character on Monday. I think if they can show that character and add a bit more quality to it, which they've clearly got in the likes of Barnes and Maddison who didn't start, I think they beat West Ham comfortably, because the West Ham players will not have any. They won't give two. I want to imagine getting injured or something like
that. That's it. There's that. But
the only thing about Spurs is
I can still see Spurs. You know, you can still see Son turning it on.
Well, they've got good enough players where even if you can play shit, you can got that. You know,
and they did do enough under Conte, didn't they?
Yeah.
So didn't they? I think I can still see Spurs winning, but I can't see anything but a Leicester win.
Yeah. Mate, keeping on Spurs, they've just had a bit of bad news, and the man that they've been going for, Still is his name. I can't think of his name. He's from the Dutch league. He's just won the league.
From Feyenoord.
Feyenoord pissed the league, and they've tried to get the manager. Apparently he was keen, but Feyenoord have just said, like, whacked a big, you owe us 10 million type thing if you have him. Spurs aren't prepared to pay, or they're not prepared to let him go, one of the two. So it looks like they were out a manager. We were saying off air before, it's mad how Chelsea and Tottenham haven't got this kind of thing wrapped up.
Considering, particularly in Chelsea's case, the amount of recruitment he's done so quickly and the big names they brought in to not bring in a manager, like
how they're not all singing off the same song sheet, I don't know. It's literally like you've got all these directors and people in it all just working on their own. I've got this idea, you go on. I've got this idea, and then no one's putting all the dots together, which is a bit mad. I also seen Van Nistelrooy, who finished second behind Feyenoord, PSV. He's just been he left.
Yeah, by mutual consent or something, wasn't it?
He's not had the support from the board. I watched his overlap he done with Gary Neville, really interesting. He seems to be really...
Talks really well,
doesn't he? Speaks really, really well. I was impressed by the interview. It sounds like he's not had the kind of... The board didn't have the same, view for the future, if you like, that he had.
I mean, not being funny, they've made some strange moves in the transfer market, though, PSV. They brought in, I say, strange moves. They were clearly uneducated, or there was a lack of research that's gone into the recruitment. They brought in Torgan Hazard, who's hardly played. They brought in someone else, another player who is clearly just fell off a cliff, and they thought, we can get him, put him on decent wages, and he's hardly has an impact. So whether he's alluding to the fact that he didn't want them players, I don't think so. But I think there's probably a bit more to that story.
On the transfers as well, mate, I've seen Mason Mount and obviously Maddison, if Leicester go down, are getting spoken about quite a bit. I didn't realise Mason Mount won Chelsea's Player of the Year for 2 years on the spin. Before this season, he's not even getting a look in, for the reasons we've just mentioned. Be interesting if I seen United linked to him, Liverpool have been linked to him, United linked to Neymar as well. I saw, it was a bit mad. Yeah. But as I read, you've got the Brighton chairman coming out, Brighton manager saying, Caicedo and McAllister might not go now that you've got Europa. You've got Mount there. I think Liverpool are obviously going to be in the market for potentially at least two of them.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, though. I think that it's going to be some big...
You said, haven't you, a few times, and I think you're right. I think that this summer's going to be a bit of a merry-go-round. It's probably just going to take one, as it always does, one transfer to kick it off, isn't it?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see where Mount ends up.
Would you take Mount?
I don't...
It's your system, innit, and where he kind of fits in there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't... Listen, I can't in my head.
Is he like a Lallana?
Yeah, and I hated Lallana.
He was like Marmite, though, weren't he?
I just hated him. Yeah, I don't even. You could say he was like Marmite. He was
no. I mean, in terms of some Liverpool fans.
But I don't get how could you like him? He was just shit. Gary, I hated him. Really? Really hated him. I didn't watch
enough to have an opinion.
I did not see the thing about him. Did not see the thing about him at all. I done that tweet once, didn't I, when we were playing United? Lallana come on, and I went, if he does anything remotely positive in this game, I'm expecting to see me leg grown back in the morning. He fucking scored. Yeah. It's the only thing he's done. But not into him. And yet he probably does remind me of a bit like a Lallana type player. I can't in my head now think of like a bit of a highlight reel for Mount, you know what I mean? Maybe because he's, I don't know.
Some good goals, Mount,
maybe I've just not took as much of an interest as I should in him. But listen, if he comes and... Listen, Klopp's saying the right for me. I think
he's an honest enough player in terms of I think he would buy into the way you play, and I think he'd work hard enough, and I think he'd bring a bit of a creative, maybe a creative spark to that. I mean, you've obviously kind of found that in Trent a little bit, in Curtis Jones as well. But I guess the question is he better than Curtis Jones?
Well, yeah, he is, isn't he?
That's what I mean. So is he improving your team? And I think he probably does.
So yeah, on that basis, I'm probably being a bit harsh on him. I personally just don't know enough about him, not seen enough to think he could be a great player for us. But listen, Klopp knows more, and you've got to trust him. I've seen another thing on him. He's had a bit of a scary time. He basically's had it off with a little a TikTok star, 21-year-old girl who I think they slept with together about 6 months. He said, you're not for me, and she stalked him for like 4 months. Wow. She got his number and rang him off 21 different numbers. It said... Wow. Harassing him and following him and all this.
Change his number now.
Probably should have, to be fair.
Surely, like someone, I mean, that's
scary behaviour.
It's scary behaviour, like, but surely it goes with the territory. And yeah, but if you go and date someone with respect off TikTok, then you know
I
they're
don't
a
know
bit of
whether he met her on TikTok.
attention. Yeah, but if that's their profile, either a TikTok
Well, that's what it said
influencer
on
and a star or whatever,
on the article.
then they're going to have a certain personality, aren't they?
What would it say for you, do you think? If it said, like, 'cause on this, it was like TikTok, you know,
star.
I don't know if it's star, but, you know, thinking from TikTok, what would it be? Gary Judge from businessman, Gary Judge, podcaster.
Education guru, Gary Judge, I don't know.
Might just be local knobhead, Andy Grant. But yeah, so she's off TikTok. He's, you know, essentially just going out of her for 6 months, fucked her off, and she's going to get sentenced in June. Thought that was a bit of an interesting...
yeah.
Well, she's been charged, going to get sentenced.
Speaking about what we were speaking about before, it'd be interesting to see what the punishment is in that respect.
Yeah. I think that's it on footy, mate. Got a few mad ones for you in tennis, though.
You always have got a few mad ones.
I love tennis, lads, and especially now.
Be interesting to know how many of the people in this podcast like really look forward to these tennis.
And just fast forward this 5 minutes.
Oh no.
So yeah, so the French Open around the corner. There's no British women that are going to be taking part in the French Open. Make it at what you will. I mean, there's probably a bigger, more in-depth debate to be had on
from an LTA point of view in terms of what we're doing. I mean,
yeah, from a grassroots kind of.
Having said that, you look 20 years ago, there wasn't even a woman in sight, let alone like, you know, qualifying for Grand Slams.
Well, the headlines probably a bit disingenuous when you look at how far they've come, but as it stands now, you know, for whatever reason, I think
there's a few factors around fitness as well, isn't there?
And obviously injuries. I know Emma Raducanu's injured. There was 3 of them.
Always injured.
I know. I'm glad you said that and not me. There was, I think, 3 of them that were in the qualifiers, all got beat. Now, I think I was lucky enough to be at Paulo, who do the live cast where he's got a group called Be The Standard, and the guest speaker this week was Barry Hearn, and he was speaking about how big darts is and how it's going to get even bigger. He's talking about, you know, the kind of working class sport where it's like, you know, you're kind of laying in the pub and you can do it in your bedroom, compared to something like golf and tennis, where whether it's
the less accessible, aren't they?
Very much so for the, you know, the working class people who are either, you know, the local council are making it maybe too overpriced, or the governments are kind of shutting them down.
There's a few things on tennis, like going back to when we were kids, Stanley Park was the only place we could play tennis. And 2 things. 1, they'd lock the courts up half the time, you'd have to climb over. 2, you'd have people who'd rip the nets and all that, and like they do in parks. And then 3, you know, the weather obviously doesn't help, does it?
No.
You touched on it. So it's such a difficult one to nail, I think, from a number of levels. You then go down the things of going, you've got to pay when you play, which then, like, as kids, can you afford to play? I think it needs serious investments. It needs serious investment,
but I also think as a culture, again, I think young people on social media, you know, me and you when we were kids, you know, would have rang each other up.
It was only when Wimbledon was coming around, though, that we would play tennis, wouldn't we?
Yeah, granted. But, I mean, even in football, you know, let's go. I think kids now with social media, I know it's a bit of a blasé kind of excuse to say why aren't kids out playing sport, but it does play a big part.
You don't see many TikTok videos of people hitting backhands, do you? Or like,
no, definitely not.
So like when we, as you're getting at there, when we were kids, what a trigger you to go out and play footy is the paper comes through the door and you see the scores and you see the back of the Echo or whatever, or you put the telly on and you see a goal, and
that's just the way society is nowadays. So I think there's like you say, there's a few reasons,
and that's probably what Barry's getting at in terms of like you put TikTok or social media and you see loads of reels of the 180s and all the crowds and all of that.
That's exactly what he said,
and it's all like he said
that which I thought was a great stat. He said, he's basically saying, you know, he's built darts around, you know, a working man's sport. He's like, you know, he said a great little line that he said he basically went into like a working man's club. You know, they were playing darts, having a beer, and they were having a good time. And he was like eating like crap food or whatever, but everyone was happy. And he was like, fucking pound signs there, do you know what I mean? If I can replicate that on a bigger scale, which is essentially what he's done with the darts. He said that this year in the darts, per person, they drank more pints of beer than the German beer festival. Or something like that.
Do you mean in Ali Pali?
Yeah, like something like 10.8 pints on average each person had.
I think I said it to the few show. It's a great. Honestly, I'd recommend it. You know, it doesn't have to be.
And you look at that though, from how much you've kind of sold it to me already. Not that I needed it selling, but compared to now tennis, different levels.
Oh, it is, yeah. You know, people aren't allowed to even like whisper in a.
Oh, exactly. So it's
But you know what? There'll be a change to that. There has been with golf in terms, you know, there's live, but also there's the thing around most municipal golf courses now. You can wear what you want. You don't have to wear collars anymore and all that. You've got to there's got to be an evolution of those sports. Like cricket done it a few years ago with 2020, and now
I think the thing is though, they take so long, don't they, those changes to come into effect, and that's where it might get a bit worse before it gets better. I saw an interesting one as well, and I don't know the ins and outs of this exactly, but the Lawn Tennis Association has lost £16.4 million in revenue because of all the Russian and Belarusian bans, with sponsorships dropping out and various kind of moving around of tour dates and people not getting involved, and people, I don't know how it's...
See, businesses as well, you know, there'll be a lot of money that probably come from them countries.
Yeah, exactly.
That maybe they're not allowed to accept anymore.
But that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money for the LTA as well. They're not like...
They think, I read the article, it said
the FA.
They're going to get it back in, they reckon, the next couple of years, it'll be fine, but that's fucking big. That's a big loss, and it was brought on them really by something again that went on thousands of miles away.
It's out of their control.
They really couldn't have that much of a say. And the last one on tennis, which links into a little bit of the Vinicius Junior and Ivan Toney one, is there's a tennis player called Hugo Gaston. I think he's around 100.
Maybe lost this one.
He's been fined €125,000 for unsportsman behaviour. He's got a bit of a track record at it. He's done it a few times, and basically his latest one was he must have been getting beaten in a rally. It was basically, you know, with balls up in the air, he was going to be on the receiving end of a big smash, and he's just let one of the tennis balls in his pocket go out. So there was essentially 2 balls in play, which is then that point's now not happened. It's been found out, and he's been banned €125,000 fine. Sorry, lad, he's only won 98 grand this year. Now I think the fine reduces to like 65,000 if he pays it within like 20 days.
Speeding fine.
Honestly, and it just made me obviously it made me laugh, but then, and I know it's different sports, football and tennis different, but again, from a society level, you think this lad is, you know, a bit of shit housery on a tennis court, getting fined 125 grand. People are being racist, people are gambling, getting 8-9 month bans, and it's mad. The whole kind of, it's fucking bananas. It's just I don't get it, But poor Hugo is
funny story, though.
Get paying your fine, I'd say, Hugo, because you can half it there, lad, if you pay within 28 days.
All the best though. If he's on the equivalent of 100 grand a year, and he's getting a fine of that, it's like someone who's on 20 grand a year getting a 16 grand fine. Or
mad.
How are you finding that much? I mean,
I know. I'm dying to know
one of his Belarusian sponsors might have to step up and pay for it.
I'm gonna follow that story with interest. But before we finish off with boxing, the only other little bit of news which I thought was interesting, because I find it hilarious, the Live Tour. Koepka won the latest major, which has meant now he's won 14% of the majors he's took part in, and 50% of the time he's finishing in the top 10. Wow. Which is give everyone a bit of a headache for the upcoming Ryder Cup. Because it's one of them. He's one of the best golfers in the world,
and he's not going to be.
What you do? How's it the best of America against the best of Europe when
it's gonna I think it'll only, if they do stick to the guns, I think it'll only really hit home when we've had the first Ryder Cup, and I think if people see it as just being as entertaining as it was, because to a certain extent, the standard doesn't matter in the Ryder Cup. It's about the actual competition itself, isn't it? And the rivalry and the... It does, don't get me wrong.
It does matter still.
No, it does, but I think back to the major Ryder Cup moments, and like your Nick Faldos, and it always seems to be an older player who just steps up in a major way. Like Tiger Woods never really took he's not got those iconic moments.
Yeah,
he never took it by the scruff. It was never the best player in the world that really stepped up in the Ryder Cup. It was always like one of the players.
But it's still built. I know, I get you.
There's more gamesmanship
it's
about it.
Still built on the foundation of the best against the best. Though.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
it's a bit like when Man United never played the FA Cup that year. It's like.
But again, I still maintain that I think we won't really realise how significant it's going to be until there has been a competition without some of them. And if it's like, that wasn't the same, then I think they'll probably look to...
Listen, I think you're right, though. I think the Ryder Cup will do a great job regardless if there's no live play. It will be. It will still have that suspense. But again, I think you're right. It'll maybe only be weeks and months where you go, yeah, but he wasn't playing and he wasn't playing, and maybe that's when...
That'll tip the balance one way or the other one. And the sponsorship thing as well. Obviously, every golf competition relies on sponsors commercially.
That'd be interesting.
And if some of them aren't involved, if them players aren't involved, they might go, we don't believe it's worth as much as it was.
Or if you're sponsoring
the Ryder Cup
and the Ryder Cup, and you're going, your Rolex, and you're thinking happy days, well, we're going to have the best player, our main guy playing in our main tournament, and then they're not, and they're
Well,
like, well, hang on, I'm not paying you for the tournament.
No,
There'll
definitely be implications there without doubt, and it's just weighing that up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Money talks, doesn't it? As always, as it is in Liv, as it has with Liv with the players, it will do with the authorities and stuff as well.
100%, yeah. Finish off on some boxing, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a good look into it. It's such a fascinating weekend on a number of levels. You know, we spoke about, you know, the Liv versus the PGA. You've got the battle of the promoters this week as well. You've got Matchroom, Boxer and Frank Warren all putting out cards, which hasn't happened for a while. One, which is great. You know, it's a great weekend of boxing. But then you got the downside of it as a boxing fan. The likelihood of you being able to watch two of the headline fights is very unlikely, if more than one. So I think that's disappointing.
You probably won't be able to watch more than one.
You know, the only way it might happen is in the case of the Okoli Billum Smith fight, because it's at the Vitality. They'll probably have to have that fight earlier. You know, because it's at a football stadium, it's an outdoor stadium. So they normally have to have rules around.
Normally it's going to be 10 o'clock, 10:30. 3 of them would arguably be on.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I think you're being very optimistic there, you know.
What? No, I don't think there's a way you can watch all 3. But I think there might be a chance you can watch, for instance.
Catch the end or something.
I think you might be able to watch the Billum Smith Okoli one first. I think that'll be on first because it's an outdoor stadium event. And then you might be able to just about catch. I think it'll be Lara against Wood and Lopez Conlon will probably be on at the same time. But even I'm even interested just from a business point of view to see what the viewing figures are like, who's choosing what.
Really interesting.
Because they are all equally. I mean, from a British point of view, Okoli Billum Smith is an incredible fight for that division.
It's his homecoming as well, isn't it? Well, he's fighting not homecoming.
Well, it's the second time he's fought there now. I think it's a great coup. You know, Okoli was for boxing in the first place to come across from Matchroom to Boxer, but it's a fascinating fight. That obviously old stable mates. They fought in the same gym.
It seems like they've done like 300 rounds.
Hundreds of rounds with each other, but even the styles. You know, you've got Okoli who's now with Sugar Hill, who's all about the one punch bang. You know, he's looking to set that punch up all the time. Billum Smith, who just has only got one way of fighting, and that's going toe to toe. And his fight with Isaac Chamberlain last year was fight of the year for me. It was incredible. I saw that actually. Incredible fight, and you know that division alone. You know, Okoli's number one, I think, with the WBA, but then like the other fighters that are not English in that division, Makubu and Badou Jack, who beat Makubu not so long ago. It's the Brits dominate that division. I mean, Chamberlain's down, I think, outside of the top 10, but you know he probably deserves to be higher. Richard Riakporhe.
Well, I see him.
Richard Riakporhe for me is, I think is the best in that division. I think eventually he'll get the title, but this fight is going to be a great one.
But when you're looking at those fights as well, that's the article I read. The first one, it was Bunsey made the article on it saying that these are 3 fights that if you said you were going to have these 3 fights in 2023. You'd be made up thinking, you know, if they're a few months apart, you'd be fucking made up.
To have them on the same night is a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but...
I think the next 3 weekends haven't got no boxing on.
Yeah, I know.
I know, but from a business point of view again, I wonder if they've sat down and said...
They're all losing out a little bit, aren't they? But they're all so arrogant for different reasons, aren't they? Like, Sky / Boxer are almost trying to say, like, if you like the new kids on the block, Boxer, they're trying to say, well, look, we can go toe to toe.
We'll do it regardless.
Frank Warren will always be the arrogant old school man of going, you know, my card wins all, and Eddie Earn, you know, and what they've done at Matchroom, they always speak for themselves. I think you know, their card is probably the deepest, but, you know... That Lara Wood one is a 50-50 fight as much as it gets, you know.
Have they fought in between that?
Yeah, they only fought in February.
You know what? I was thinking...
Lee Wood was winning that fight by some distance, and Lara basically just came out of nowhere and knocked him out.
But I wasn't sure whether they fought again in between that. Not them, but I mean they fought with the people.
No, literally 3 months ago. So the reason they've been able to fight so quickly is it wasn't like substantial injuries. You know, he was busted up a little bit, but it was pretty much 1 or 2 punches and he was gone. He just come out of nowhere. Lara will take a punishment, and he's shown that in the first fight, but you watch that fight back, which I've done a little bit of it this week, and Lee Wood looked so strong in that fight, and Lara looked like a fighter that maybe was coming, was on the, you know, on the turn a little bit, whereas Lee Wood, I fancy him in that. I actually think he may be able to break that
It's in Manchester, isn't it? The League
It is.
One?
That's in the AO Arena in Manchester. You've got Terry Harper on that bill as well. That's a WBA super welterweight title. Danny Ball and Robinson, an English welterweight title. That's quite a 50-50 fight. That'll be a decent matchup. On the Okoli one, Gus actually Isaac Chamberlain was meant to be on that bill, but his opponent Lal, Nigerian fighter, I think he is, tough fella. That was going to be a really good fight. He's withdrew, I think, a few weeks ago. Another great fight. Whenever Sam Eggington gets in the ring, I don't know if you know Sam. He's fought Liam Smith before, and Liam Smith blazzes him. But whenever he gets in the ring, he's such a brave, game fighter. He's fighting Joe Pigford. You know, if you're looking for a betting angle there, Joe Pigford's really good value to get a win there. Potential a stoppage. I think Sam Eggington is probably just seeing out the end of his career and maybe got a couple more fights in him. But I think Joe Pigford's a decent price. I think he's about even just to win the fight. I think it's good timing for him. I think he's even said himself, this is a perfect fight for me. And finally, from a, you know, going through the bills and looking at the last one, which is at the SSE Arena in Belfast on BT, you've got, you know, Lopez and Conlon. Fascinating matchup. I think 2 weeks ago, I was leaning towards Lopez. The closer the fight's got, the more I've seen the fighters close up, and you know, I now fancy Conlon. I've looked back at the Warrington fight where Lopez beat him and maybe looked like Josh Warrington maybe as someone who's come to the end of his time. Lopez has got a few more miles on the clock. I think it's probably it's good timing for Lopez. Yeah, they're a similar age. You know, Lopez has got a few more rounds under his belt, but I think what Conlon's got in his favour, they'll both go toe-to-toe. Conlon's a slightly better fighter at a distance. And I think over the course of the fight, you'd imagine the start of the fight, he'll try and pick him off. And then as the fight goes on, he'll get closer and closer. And I think he might just pip him in the rounds for that reason. But from a scout's point of view, it's all about Nick Ball again. Nick Ball.
Is Nick Ball fighting this weekend?
Nick the Wrecking Ball is back in there again at Belfast. It's now the vacant WBC silver. So it'll basically set him up for a fight with the WBC king as he is, Ray Vargas. So that's what Nick Ball's targeting. He's literally called him out. He's obviously saying, oh, listen, I'll fight the winner of Conlon Lopez. He's on that bill for almost that reason, is to say, just before, if you're watching this bill, you watch Nick Ball before it, and I think you'll be, if you haven't watched them before, this is the best platform he's had now, because he's the fight just before the Conlon fight. And I'm sure as soon as he gets that late KO, which I think he will, he'll be straight on the mic saying, I want one of you to.
Be great if he
or
does.
I want Ray Vargas. He deserves it. I mean, he's gone under the radar a little bit. I know, obviously, Jordan, who was on here, spoke highly of him for a while. He's now had 17 fights. He's not a rookie.
He's not a new kid on the block anymore, is he?
No, not at all. I mean, and you look at that, he's had 6 KOs. So he's only had, I think it's 9 KOs altogether out of his 17, which, considering his style, is not a huge ratio. But it's 6 KOs, or one of them is a retirement in his last 7 fights now.
Yeah.
He's making a statement.
That wrecking ball in here.
And he's so powerful. I mean, like, he's tiny. Like,
yeah, I seen him actually walk past the other day, and I was just thinking, you're fucking dead hard.
He's just a little, he's just a little, like, bulldog. But again, it's a fascinating matchup again. Lamarty, who he's fighting, has come up from super bantamweight. So he's come up a weight. He wasn't necessarily a big hitter, but his first 2 fights are featherweight, which is where he's fighting Nick Ball. He's got 2 KOs. He'll go toe-to-toe with Nick Ball, which is a dangerous thing. I don't think he's going to be quite as easy a nut to crack as some of Nick Ball's other opponents, which is why I think, again, from a, not tipping here, but I think there's value in a late stoppage there. I think it'll take a few rounds to wear him down, but I think he'll probably start chasing the fight, and Nick Ball, if you let him too close, will break it in half. But perfect step up for Nick Ball, and hopefully it's a step up to a title fight next.
On the boxing as well, mate, the weekend, the 2 I didn't watch. I know you watched the Lomachenko fight. Wasn't happy with the result. Another
poor decision. Maybe not as sensational as some of the decisions we've had down the years, but Lomachenko was robbed. I mean, the first half of the fight, Haney probably took a few more rounds. From the 6th onwards, you find it tough to find a round in there for Haney, apart from the last round. Obviously, they call the last rounds, or the last few rounds, the championship rounds for a reason, and they do stick in the judges' heads, and maybe there's a little bit of scribbling out and go, maybe I'll give him that one. But I really felt for Lomachenko. Going into the fight, a lot of people were really You know, there was very few people that were opposing Haney, being the younger man, being the tougher fighter, the bigger puncher. Lomachenko, maybe age and a number of rounds, miles on the clock, as they say, being against him, but he was outstanding. He rolled back the years, Lomachenko, at the weekend, and he deserved the decision, and it was a shame for him.
You mentioned the decision there. I watched the Taylor Cameron fight, and I was worried about it.
She nearly got robbed, didn't she?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, man, this is going to be fucking...
No, it was like that. You
just thought, don't do this to it.
No,
you know, with the crowd, and you're thinking, the judge is going to fall for this crowd, and you'd have McGregor there, and I just thought,
even the bookies were like not worried about it, but you obviously watch the in-play stuff, and I always do, just to, because it gives you a good gauge of where maybe how the cards are going. The bookies very rarely get it wrong. They were even like going, I don't want to give you too much here, too high odds on Katie Taylor. Yeah, she only really won one, two, maybe three rounds.
Three maybe. Yeah. I think I give her 3. It might even mean 4 at a push, but 3. So I was made up. Jamie Moore as well. Became a bit pally with him over the years. Made up for him. Proper buzzing for him.
And it's you know, Katie Taylor's been incredible for the sport, and what an ambassador she's been, and a top pro, and very graceful in defeat as well.
Yeah, I thought she was really good in defeat, actually.
And again, you can't have enough time for what she's done for that sport. But I think the good thing is now it's now a
someone else taking her on for a bit. She's had a lot of pressure, hasn't she? Really, she has been the face, hasn't she? So
she has, yeah. And, you know, and Natasha Jonas is back out. When she fighting a show this weekend?
I don't think it's this weekend.
No, it's in a couple of. Oh, it's the Liam Smith bill. It's been obviously pick up in a few weeks' time.
Mate, even though we've just been discussing boxing, we have got the only 50 quid this week. Got one last week by Mark Owens, and I'm about to call Jimmy for this week's Sportscast quiz.
Is there anything else in the mix for him? Prep with passion stuff.
Yes, there is Prep with Passion. Nice one, Gary. Yes, so Aaron from Prep with Passion has got a bit of a giveaway as well as the 50 quid I will send if Jimmy wants to answer the phone.
Class, by the way. So I mean, if you're looking to get in shape for the summer, a lot more of it's about nutrition than going to the gym, and you know, it's the guys at Prep with Passion. Aaron, he's superb. So
right.
I think is it a week? Is it a week?
I think it's a week worth of scran. Yeah.
If it's not Aaron, unlucky mate, you're giving him
you're giving a week away now.
Says it now, but yeah, get on them on Instagram. The class.
Hello.
What was that, Darren?
It is me, yeah.
Hi mate, it's Andy Graham from the Legged Podcast.
Hi mate, you alright?
Yeah, I'm good mate. Are you free to answer a quick question?
Yeah.
You could win 50 quid and a week's worth of food from Prep with Passion if you guess correctly. Okay mate, right, so there's 3 teams that have survived. There's soon to be 4 teams that have survived staying in the Premier League despite being bottom at Christmas. So Wolves are about to do it this season. They're the 4th team. Can you name one of the 3 other teams that have survived in the Prem despite being bottom at Christmas?
West Brom.
Lad, you've nailed it.
What's the first one?
Straight away.
They were the first.
Lad, you've won 50 quid and like I say, a week's worth of Prep with Passion from Aaron. So yeah mate, I'll message you after this, get your details and get that box for you.
Oh, nice one, Andy. Appreciate it, mate.
Thanks for the support on Patreon, mate. Nice one.
Well, thanks. See you later.
Cheers, mate.
Fair play. They were the first to escape.
There we have it. There
2005, I think it was. That was it. Don't know if anything else happened to that year.
There you have it. £50 won and a week's worth of Prep with Passion food for Darren. Dead easy to get involved. All you got to do is sign up on Patreon. It's £1 a week, and we're going to have some big announcements over the next few weeks about how the podcast is going to be changing. And it's all good stuff, and now is the time to get involved. So thank you very much, Darren, for your support. And anyone who wants to join, again, dead simple, just click the link. I think that's us, lads. Hopefully, next week's show can be a bit of a roundup of the Prem and a bit of hope for next season.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether that be in the Championship or Prem, we shall see.
Yeah, I'll get a few selfies to you hopefully on Sunday. You know, smile on my face and me heart rate being slightly lower.
Yeah, text us your heartbeat, lad, what it is. Like I say, nice one everyone for watching. Much appreciated as always, and we see you next week.